Good afternoon. We're going to call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. First item, been asked to ask if there are none. I'm hearing nothing. We'll presume there are none. The next item is to work through the approval of the agenda. I think everyone's received that. It is there on the website. I think, without reading every word of it, the fundamental thing is Mr. Smiles prepared a report for us based on what was requested last time around about the budget numbers over the last, we said 10 years, but it actually turned into 10 years. So good for you. You actually found things. So that's great. But I think that's the primary thing here. We'll need to actually formally accept that agenda for this date. So I need to have someone to make a motion. Bill Meredith. And someone to second it, Carrie Ann. And so that's carried. So we'll continue with the agenda. Next item is approval of minutes. So we did have minutes that were circulated. They were sent around to everyone. It fundamentally just noted items from the last meeting, of course. And were there any concerns about that or any discussion on that? So if someone wants to make motion to approve the minutes, that would be Bill. Okay. And some other excited participant will now second that. Thank Carrie Ann, yes. Good for you. That's good. So now we're moving into the meat of the discussion today and the presentation. So Mr. Smiley's prepared something for us, and I guess we'll just start walking through that. I anticipate out of this, there'll be some discussion and some questions. We may even get some more motions or whatever comes out of this, right? As we get into that. So that'll be probably the meat of the meeting, as it were. And we'll just get rolling with that part of it. If you want to jump in.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, we do have a little presentation here. So yeah, from our initial meeting on I believe it was June 6th. From that, a motion was made, and which is on the next slide there. And we provided the financials for the last 10 years as part of the agenda. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to review it or not, but we also got the information on the areas that were most used in the parking program. We have the number for the costs of associated with the municipal lots, and we sent out that study from WSCS Consulting for review by committee members. We also I had a meeting with the manager of procurement, so I have some information on that. So yeah, if you could go to the next slide, we have the revenues and the expenses for the last 10 years. Okay, if you can open it up like that, that works. But yeah, as you can see, in the last 10 years, even with the new parking system, it didn't generate revenue. When you compare the the revenue total and the expense total, it has been a loss for the last 10 years. We made the most we have in the last 10 years last year at 197,000. But with that, we've also gotten much better at, capturing costs associated. So like the ground maintenance, the transfer to reserves, interdepartmental transfers, as you can see that is all increased, especially in the last few years. So, the loss looks very large at 411,000 for last year. So yeah, I'm not sure if we want to discuss that. Yep, go ahead.
Fine, it's up there, I'm out of my territory here. Through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley. So I have reviewed this and the 411 is a big number. The one thing I just, you have a lot, there's a lot in here, like if we scroll down to the operations, the grounds maintenance, it's all included in here, which doesn't, I mean, if we're expecting parking to pay for everything, we're going to be in a loss every year. So is this what you call true costs, or is this like because painting lines and asphalt and all that? I mean, I personally wouldn't include that in the expenses of the parking, right? So I kind of want to have, okay, what is the parking machine, that machine that we had, we see, there's maintenance on the machine, whether it's IT maintenance, paper for the machines, labor for ticketing, that kind of thing. So, and then because we have everything in here, and if that's what we're going to add into everything, we're not gonna have profit in these machines. So, and I understand that it could be a secondary kind of cost to the machines, but the primary cost of these machines is basically profit, revenue for these machines, comparables is what I'm kind of after, because and I'm not sure, because this would be a slam dunk saying, no, these, if we're putting all these costs in, then this isn't viable. So when we look at, it's 50% of bylaw salaries and benefits, fuel and vehicle costs, so is applied to the program. And if that's 50% of your time, you would know that, then that's fine. But then we have internal costs, CXO, finance, and all that. That's all integrated in here too. So that is a given that when we take those numbers, the revenue coming in, then we ship it off to finance. And I know it's time that they're spending on here, but if we're going to add all that in, then we're not going to get to, we're going to be at a loss all the time. So if we take time staff that we have for ticketing on the, you're saying 50%, okay, that's a pretty accurate figure that you've come up with. Then time, is it software maintenance and so forth, we have in here. Pretty big number here is it was at 150. What was it? Oh, I just lost it here. What was the 152 for grounds? Okay. The software maintenance was, some buttons here that it shouldn't be, 108. So that number there is pretty significant, and that I could probably attribute to, and this is just me, correct me if I'm wrong, is it through the different variations of requests from council that you went back and forth, or is this just software maintenance, breakdowns, training? Like you said, there's a lot of training in here, different applications, changing the software, the mechanics of what you want it to do. Is that what this 108 is in here? And is that realistic on a normal, if we went to a system like this again, would that be because it went from 52.6 to 108, it over doubled in the previous year. Now I know there's more traffic with the parking machines in last year compared to the year before. But would $100,000 be fair to say that would we be expecting on a new machine, or is just the problematic with these machines and the request from council?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Emeritus. I agree, like, it's going to be very difficult to have a successful parking system if I have to, cover the costs of everything to do with a municipal lot. Scott ran the numbers there on 55 with the software maintenance per machine, and it turned into over 7,000 a month. So that, and then all the changes that have been made through council, those cost, they're not done for free. So that is some of what those costs can be attributed to. But yeah, I think as part of this committee, we need to reevaluate the expectations we're putting on our parking program. Because yeah, there is absolutely no way, especially at $1 an hour, Monday to Saturday or Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, it's going to be very, very difficult to, and we got to determine if we're going to, put resources behind that, because I can say more resources will be needed to make it successful, and we'll have to minimum double the cost per hour, I would say, to get close. And we did put some of those suggestions forward through reports that were in the previous PowerPoint. And yeah, that's what we need to determine. If it's worthwhile, should we reevaluate how much we're expecting of it? Because yeah, that was the 197,000 that was made, was with staff working very hard to get that. So, there could need to be an investment in staff in order. So, because, in my experience, people were more than willing to take the risk and, and park for free, and because people know our staffing levels, and, so yeah, this is all stuff we need to take care of, and as part of this committee.
Go ahead, Karen.
Through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley. I'm just going through here, and this is a great picture of what historical data, but for the committee moving forward, is there any way to kind of break this out into just the maintenance of the parking lots, and like kind of remove the cost of the program, like the machines and that kind of thing out of this, so that we can, as we're moving forward, we can say, okay, this is attributed to having the parking lots. For the parking lots to exist, this is how much it's going to cost us, and then build from there. Because now that these new machines are gone or going or in transition wherever they go, some of these numbers are going to be irrelevant moving forward. So is there any way to break those numbers out so we can see what we can even achieve? Because again, like sorry, pardon me. We're only up $10,000 a year over 2014. Lots of dip during COVID, of course, we get that. But our revenues are not raising at the cost, like it's not even close. We would have to more than triple the dollar per hour or the rates in order to just to break even with the machines that we were having. So I guess what I'm asking is if we're trying to figure out how to at least break even on the parking, let's put revenue aside for now. We need to understand what the cost to have the program is without those machines and the maintenance and the software and all the things that go with it. And because the revenue numbers are probably not going to change. I don't know that the new machines made the revenue any better or worse. But the costs certainly would change. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Copeland. yeah, that can be done. I'm sure I can go back, like, our CFO was very helpful in putting all this together as the committee asked. And, yeah, we could take away, some of those if that's what, the committee wants. And I think that is a good idea because, it is quite overwhelming when you look at this and we're here to solve, you know, you look at last year, a $200,000 gap, and that's with a potential capital expense to get a brand new system, you know? So I think going forward with that huge number of the $55 per month, you know, we're not going to want 70 machines. We need to steer the public to being more open to those QR codes and maybe having, you know, a handful of machines and advertising where those machines are, should you want to use them. And maybe the answer is to have a little drive-through in one of the well-used lots or on the way into town. And we'll get into that further into this, of the most used machines. Because yeah, it's a huge, you know, a huge budget number, you know, to dig out of when you're starting in the hole of over 7,000 a month. And then, you know, December being free, but we're still paying that 7,000 a month. So yeah, I think it does need to be rethought. And yeah, you know, we went from the pay by plate to pay and display. You know, we were at the top of technology, but I don't think the demographic here in Midland is ready for that. Because yeah, like when we went to pay by plate to pay and display, we saw a huge increase in the coin. People were carrying their change purses again, you know, and yeah, so we need to move it forward, but with that demographic in mind, and provide those options, because some people, you know, don't have the smartphone, don't want to have a smartphone, and I admire that. And, you know, and so we do have to think about that and have options for them who want a machine that, you know, maybe they can hit up a machine on the way into town and park in front of their favorite store with that displayed, so that we're aware that they did do that.
Thank you. Through you to David, I guess, will maybe be able to help answer this one. When I kind of calculate some of the hard numbers that are actually associated with the parking, like if I include grounds maintenance, insurance and taxes, kind of being the basic ones that I see that are really responsible, like those are the parking lots and those are the lots on the ground. Without any enforcement, I mean, you don't necessarily need salaries and benefits. You don't need a lot of the other things that are in there to go along with that. So taxes, insurance, and grounds maintenance, I get about $212,000. Showing a loss of $411,000. And I guess if we get rid of the $197,000 in income too, so there's almost a fixed cost without any enforcement of $212,000. I don't see the transfer to reserve, which is another $107,000. Like, by putting that in your budget line, by committing yourself to needing to collect $107,000 off of the parking program, that's a pretty huge chunk to set yourself up for failure with. And I don't know whose direction says, like, all right, wherever you see money coming in, we need $107,000 of that money, especially when the money's not actually coming in. So it does present an extra deep hole by committing to that transfer to reserve. And I know we could get into a bigger discussion about how the reserves are tanking and we don't have any money left and we got to fix a waste treatment facility. I understand all that. But I guess when I look at the budget line, committing to $107,000 is really putting yourself even further behind. And whose responsibility is it to say, yeah, we need $107,000 for from the parking program to go to reserves?
Yeah, through the chair to Mr. Campbell. I'm assuming that comes from our CFO, Lindsay Barron, our reserves are low and have not been contributed to the way they need to be, for the municipality to move forward successfully. So that I believe that, and I don't want to speak for her, but I think that has been a priority to boost those up because there will be infrastructure expenses coming up. So I would assume that came from the head of the finance.
It does seem to me, though, that this goes back to the council meeting where there was a $470,000 number that they wanted to do as a levy back to businesses or just to general, right? And that this sort of tracks with that idea. It's a pretty big ask when you include things like snow clearing and other things to be because it's all paid for somewhere right now, right? Like I'm sure the idea is to try and separate this out so that it gets covered in a different way than it gets covered today. But I mean, a large number of these items are already paid for, right? It's not like we have to hire a bylaw person, right? Under this plan, it's just allocation of time that's already paid for. So it just seems to me in this that there is a fixed cost to having it downtown and having it paved and having snow not on the streets, right? There's a cost to all those things. And do we need to separate the question out in a way so that people looking at this and talking about parking in general have a better understanding of what's the actual cost of the parking system itself versus the cost of having a downtown, right? And because it's a pretty big number and it's a pretty big number for, I guess, downtown businesses or everybody to absorb. But even if everyone were to absorb it, it wouldn't be $411,000 because a lot of that's already paid for, right? In the current budget, right? Like it's not like we're not going to have more staff. We're going to allocate time to it. We're not going to do different snow clearing. I don't think. And repairs and maintenance are what they are, and even reserve is what it is, right? If that needs to be in there to cover it. So I guess that's the thing that's always puzzling to me in this is like, where are we heading with this in terms of what's the suggestion or the implication for that $411,000? I'm not sure if there's any answers on that. It's more of just an open question. Want to go ahead, Bill?
Thank you through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley or to the group. Yeah, I would, I know what Scott was saying about the ground maintenance, insurance and taxes. But I would not even, and to your point, Steve, that ground maintenance, which is our operations, we've had no parking this year. It's in the budget, right? So that line number, when I would throw that out. I mean, no matter what, those lots got to be cleared whether we have parking or not. So I'm not sure if, and I didn't, there isn't a line item in, I don't believe in Mr. Flannery's, who's operations manager, in his budget that he puts to downtown snow removal. I think it's just all in probably one big lot. Now, maybe they take a percentage of that number and pull it out and throw it to downtown maintenance, and then it gets thrown under parking. So I'm really spinning our wheels here, I think, when we're looking at these numbers, because these numbers, as I said before, we're never gonna get anywhere close to even these numbers. And the insurance and the taxes is just a question so the insurance, is that on the 6,158, is that on the machines, and is the taxes is what's collected from, I guess when you, I never looked at my receipt, there's a tax on that receipt. Is that every time you put a loonie in or a toonie in, taxes are collected? Is that what that is? And then also, when we're talking about revenues, these revenues are in 2023, they're at the bare minimum asks, right? You have seniors are free. You have a $1 an hour. So obviously we're gonna have to make some adjustments here to recoup or break even, or what I'd like to see is a surplus. But we're never gonna have a surplus if all of these big big, like the, you know, our 152.4 of our grounds maintenance is gonna be in there, so. And then you have replacement, was there some other, oh, yeah, it's down here, it's, ground maintenance, which, so winter maintenance, asphalt and street light repairs, so even that's in here, right? So sweeping, line painting, signs, garbage pickup, like this is, right? So that line item should be stroked, I'm sorry. I don't think that's gonna give us a clear indication if that's what we're gonna work on for having a parking program. If we're gonna include all these numbers, then then we're wasting our time here, so, but going back to that insurance and the taxes question, maybe you can answer that, I mean, Mr. Smiley, thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Meredith. I do not believe that is taxes on parking. My understanding is it's, there's no tax on the parking. It's just, the $1 an hour or $1.50 at the harbor with the previous system. So yeah, that is something we can find out more clearly from finance, exactly what that is. And we can do that at the end with, maybe that'll be one of the motions to come out of this to get a clearer idea. Because yeah, I did, it's hard to know what you guys are gonna, dive in on and, but yeah, and just one further thing, just a reminder that the parking lots, those municipal lots were made free. And that eliminated more than 50% of the paid parking program when those were made free. So yeah, maybe once those were made free, that should have came off my budget. Because how can I pay for that when I'm not able to generate any revenue from those lots?
Thank you. Through you to David and maybe also Councillor Meredith. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but as my memory seems to think that line of taxes on there was the impact assessed value and the amount of money that the town has to pay in taxes on those areas. Does that sound right? And this goes back to some of the meetings where I heard Mayor Gordon saying, I want to cover the costs of the taxes that we have to pay on the lots and the insurance and the maintenance, which I think at the time was, somewhere close to the 212 figure. And then a new meeting happened and it went up to about 400 and something, right? And I think everybody was left kind of, where'd the extra 200,000 come from? Part of that being the transfer to reserve. And I don't know how this would happen on a budget line, but, Councillor Meredith alluded to the fact that if there was ever a surplus, I mean, that's when you figure out what to do with it. If you don't put a transfer to reserve, but it's implied that any residual funds would then be transferred to reserve, it certainly makes your budget a little bit easier to hit. But that's maybe how I manage my budget at my place. I'm not 100% fully versed with the way a municipality does their budget.
Yeah, through the chair to Mr. Campbell. Yeah, you could very well be right. I know you have been involved in this longer than I have, and we're at many of those meetings where I started. And so, yeah, MPAC does sound correct, and we're happy to confirm that for the next meeting.
Go ahead.
And just to follow up to my, probably missed this question through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley. How about the insurance of 6,158? Is it with that? We'd have to ask Lindsay, our CFO Baron, on what does that cover? Is that the insurance of the machines, or do we know that offhand?
Through the chair to Councillor Meredith, I do not know that offhand. I didn't anticipate that question coming up. It was kind of a low number compared to some of the other ones, but we can find that out. Absolutely.
Well, I guess the thing for me, looking at the numbers, you can just stop at salaries and benefits and the math doesn't work. It's costing you $1 to collect $1. And you're relying on 66,000 in fines to collect that dollar, right? Like that's a lot in fines. To me, it says post big dig, there's no signage. Nobody knows what the rules are. Or something, or there's bad actors, or nobody has any data on it, right? It's just opinions, right? About what's really going on, but to think that you can cost 170 to collect 200, why collect anything? Why not just take those numbers out and have, you know, very little enforcement and change it so that parking is essentially free, and I think there's some patterns you could follow to look at that, because it's just hard to imagine that as those numbers are so big that you can ever get to a point of actually paying for it out of parking fees. Go ahead, Karen.
Thank you through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley. Do you, further to some of the other comments and questions, the street and harbor paid parking is all lumped into one line, which is, I don't know that that's, is that our focus, I guess, because the harbor collects like marina fees and those kinds of things that is separate. It's not listed as revenue. Oh, it is. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Boat launch passes, but it, like, the marina revenue is not lumped in there, but it's the marina, a lot of the marina people that are using those parking spots. So if we're paying and we're showing it as a lump sum, then shouldn't the marina revenues be pulled into this? If we're covering, if some of these costs are covering the harbor front maintenance of that, that's a huge parking lot. So how can we attribute that to, like, I just feel like a piece of the puzzle is missing because the marina fees are not included in this, in these revenues, and you are policing them. You're doing all the things, the same things as you're doing up the street, yet the marina revenues are not coming into play at all.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Copeland. Yeah, correct. We don't get the slip fees that is budgeted somewhere else. And also, for instance, you know, the season passes, for instance, for the boat launch at Pete Peterson, you know, there's a $100 resident fee and a $200 non-resident fee. And those go towards the infrastructure budget. So we are enforcing down there, but we don't get, you know, we don't get the revenue from those passes being sold. And that's, you know, and that's fine because, you know, operating a boat launch, there are repairs that need to be made. And, but yeah, you know, I think we could be attributed for providing that revenue to the town, but yeah, we are not getting credit for that.
Through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley, just as a follow-up to that. So all of this expense includes Pete Peterson Park, the harbor front for grounds maintenance and the parking program. Yet we wouldn't, same as the downtown, we talk about the downtown, we need parking lots for the customers, for the stores. Well, they both need parking lots for their customers. Yet we're not sharing any of the expense, like the whole parking is going to be attributed, and maybe the downtown businesses, if what comes out of it, are the ones that are going to be penalized. Yet all of those parking lots, none of they're not taking any share of that parking program. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? Like, all of the costs are being attributed to this parking program and not on their budget. So it doesn't come off of their revenue stream at all. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Ms. Copeland, yes, I believe that is correct, to the best of my knowledge, absolutely.
You, through you, Steve. Just to comment on the boat launch and the harbor. If we're asking to pull those fees into the harbor, or the boat, I guess the dockage fees, then we have to put in all the repairs and maintenance of the harbor as well. So that will be totally skewed, because I know that the repairs and maintenance would we're not going to get that clear picture on the. Well, we'll get the revenues from that, but we could also have which revenues for Peterson. You know, with these machines, we should be able to say, and Mr. Smiley will have the report on what machines are being used. You know, coming along like the most. So we should be able to nail down what, you know, put a machine at Pete Peterson Park and what revenues came from there, what revenues came from the harbor front, what revenues came from the main street, and then we have lots, right? So we should be able to break those down. And then what council did say, because the boat launch was free for a number of years, but the boat launch is depleting. And it's either all the taxpayers are gonna pay to upkeep the boat launch, or we're gonna create some revenue, right? So, so what we said as council, I think we all agreed about it, but by putting a machine down there, that the revenues would stay down in the boat launch area. But I think it gets mixed up with the harbor as well for repairs and maintenance, because it's all one. But that money would be utilized to there, but I'm sure it gets pooled, and then whenever it comes to budget time, if like this past, I think it was about $40,000 or $80,000, if I can recall, for repairs down at the Pete Peterson Park, and a new dock, a floating dock system to go with the water. So we need to pay for that. And the 20 and on the boat launch passes and paid parking, well, that 24,000 is pretty, I think we can get to double that, especially if we have a person down there, which I'm gonna hopefully in this year's budget. And if we have some type of paid parking system down there, we could have an attendant there to make sure that people are paying, right? So, and that number should probably at least double, I would say. And then the $66,000 for the the fines. So if I could comment on that, and I'm not sure on how many fines were disputed or coming here, that actual consumers down there were irate, because the problem that I saw, people were getting fined even though they couldn't use the machine, right? So that number is pretty close, you're what, 60%, like it was 96,000 in street and harbor paid parking, and 66,000, so almost 60% ish was in fines compared to the so that's it's getting pretty close. But I think that in a parking system that will actually be easier to use, I think your line revenues will go up, because we'll probably be, if that was $1 an hour, right, and we switch it to $2 an hour, you're doubling your revenue right there, just on that one small. And then your fines with a machine may stay at 66, or they may decrease. But correct me if I'm wrong. We're looking to do fines is a revenue source that we need to be out there, and it's like a speeding ticket, right? And then doubling the speeding tickets and safety zones. We want to catch people not paying, right? So.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Meredith. Yeah, as I've alluded to, people were willing to take the risk because they know we can't be out there all the time. So yeah, we had to pound the pavement and a couple times a day, and that's got us close to, closer than we've ever been, I guess, to breaking even, I guess. But yeah, like I think you need enforcement, the boots on the ground, and with the doubling or increase, maybe tripling of the fees, along with having boots on the ground, so people know that, yeah, okay, there's no getting out of this, that will cause the revenues to increase and maybe the fines to go down, because there will be more compliance.
Through you, Steve, to Councillor Meredith, just as a kind of a follow-up. I guess what I was saying earlier wasn't so much that I wanted to absorb the revenues into the parking program, with more the expenses maybe should be prorated to the harbor front for a bit. Like there must be some kind of formula that we can work through that would give us an idea of how many slips are being rented and how many cars, even if we allocated 1.5 cars per slip kind of thing, because you might have 2 people coming, and then prorate some of these expenses into the harbor front budget rather than pull their revenues into the parking plan. That doesn't make sense either, but I just felt like it was unfairly allocated all to this program when a lot of it is used because of the revenue generated at the harbor front. So that was kind of what I was thinking, as far as that goes. And also just one last follow-up to what you had just said about the fines. We're spending $168,000 to collect $67,000 in fines. So not even, it's under budget $100,000. It's costing us $100,000 more to collect the fines than it is than the fines that we're getting. And I don't want to be that downtown that says we can't come down there because we'll get a ticket every time. Like I would hate to think that we'll become that downtown that nobody wants to visit because they don't want to run the risk of getting a ticket. To me, in my financial mind, it doesn't make sense to spend $168,000 to collect $67,000. So just put that out there.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So if I can understand this correctly, what the committee's wanting is a breakdown of each of these budget lines. Like, so for example, your ground maintenance. Are you wanting a breakdown of what that all entails for the 152,000? Because, so for example, the winter maintenance of that 152,000 is $89,000. The sign materials and installs and maintenance is 2,400. Line painting is 5,700. Asphalt repairs is 3,800. Streetlight repairs inspections is 9,500. Average annual capital contribution to replace one pole every 5 years is 3,000. The sweeping of the parking lots is 29,000, and the garbage pickup / lawn care and general maintenance is 10,000. So that's kind of the breakdown. I don't know if the committee wants to get too much into the weeds on each one of these budget lines. I think it's gonna, like, the mandate is for us to look at the existing parking program. If there's stuff that needs to be removed from there, council can do that as part of their budget preparations. But I think, we just need to stay focused on the mandate of the committee to review the parking program to see what changes. I don't want the committee to get too in the weeds on this. That's just my concern, is that we're going to be having Dave go back and talk to Lindsay and pulling all these numbers, and then we're going to be into September and we're not going to be moving too far down past the start line. So, I mean, I just wanted to make that comment that we want to make sure that we don't want Dave to having to keep going back and getting this information from the CFO. So, and just try and keep us focused. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll bring it back to some of the basics for the committee then. I'm not going to color code the story here. I'm not really a huge fan of huge enforcement policy. When I see $66,000 being the highest amount in a year where we didn't actually have an entire year of a parking program, it scares me as a business owner. Being that the next highest level of enforcement or fines was 2019, which was a really great year leading up into the pandemic, $30,000 that year. So from this point on, just let the discussion know that I'm not a huge fan of increased enforcement, or even really the level of enforcement that exists currently. I understand that it looks great on a budget when you say that you can bring in more money through enforcement, but being at the store level on the street and having customers come in and complain about the fact that they got a $25 ticket, I think it does a lot more harm for the business than it does for the return of the $25 coming back to the municipality to help offset a parking program that's already losing money. So I understand you can't keep on losing money and you got to figure out ways to make money. And I know that we've been through this conversation many times before, but I'd use this as a time and place for me to say that I'm not a huge fan of the $60,000. Maybe extra money can be made, like if you make it $2 an hour, things like that. But I really do see, and Carrie, and you might see it from I'm in the store every single day. When the enforcement starts, it is bad news for everybody involved, right? Like it's great from the municipal level if you're making $25 for every fine you hand out. but at what cost, right? You're losing $100,000 trying to maintain that, so. That's,
Thank you, Mitch.
Oh, I know, I'll just kind of, but I'll comment after. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the one thing that with bylaw enforcement, Mr. Smiley can add to this. Is like, with parking, it is proactive. Like if it's a property standards complaint, may not be proactive. You know, we're not patrolling the streets looking for violations. With parking, we're not waiting for someone to call us to say that that someone's parked illegally. So I think we have to have enforcement down there. And we're at the direction of council. If council says we want increased enforcement down there, me personally, I would rather see more proactive enforcement across the board. We're limited right now in terms of staffing, but I would rather see more enforcement, proactive enforcement across the municipality. But with parking especially, we can't just sit back and wait for people to call us. No one's going to call us and say someone's parked illegally. Very rarely does it happen. And by the time staff sometimes get out there, the person's moved. So I get what you're saying, but I think we're at the will of council. If council says staff go out and enforce more, then we'll enforce as much as we can with the resources that we have. Thanks.
Yeah, through the chair to the committee. Yeah, and that's what we're looking for is a recommendation from this committee, and then ultimately the council will make the decision. And whether that proactive enforcement is, looking for a pay and display or if it's looking to enforce the 2-hour limit on parking in the downtown core, that is something that this committee gets to decide.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Thank you, Steve, through you. And I just wanted to comment to just the last comments there that Mr. Campbell was reiterating too. And I do get your point, and I know the businesses and right. I mean, got retail stores downtown as well, and not only tenants, but my wife's one of the owners, and no one wants to get a $25 ticket, and because it does leave that harsh kind of feeling of downtown Midland, and I totally get it. There's a but here, but everybody, even right now, if you go downtown Midland, people are trying to use the machines. There's no power to them. People expect to pay for parking, bottom line. I'm a fan of paid parking in the downtown. It moves cars. I have to go see a couple businesses hopefully tomorrow, because there's no parking spots in front of their place of business because cars aren't moving. So, and then they've reached out to the town to see if they could get a spot, but the town's denying them for a spot. So, so these are the kind of, right? So do you move cars or do you not, right? And with a paid parking program, it moves cars. And for us to sit there and chalk and wait 2 hours and then you can't ticket on that, you can't move cars. So if we're alluding to not having a parking program, then or are we looking at numbers to justify the parking program? I think the numbers, what we're looking at right now in the big picture, we can, as I said, we can spin our wheels here because we're again not true revenue versus expenses, right? So I'd like to see a machine that's easy to use. It's quick, few steps, and start out small, and then grow that. So we're not spending, on 70 machines before at 10,000 a machine, let's say $700,000, right? And then fix the problems as we go along. But that's the way I'm seeing it here. And I'm not really, I'm the one that's going to say whether we increase enforcement, which I think our enforcement is pretty good right now. Prior in like last year when the parking program was in, I saw 2 students there ticketing like left, right, and center, is going right down the street. So, and I thought that was a little too harsh, right? So, but they're because of because of mainly people were struggling to pay. Give me a machine that works, then there's no excuses. There's nothing, right? And easy to use. And so at the end of the day, I think, as council, as me sitting on council, I want to see results, and I want to see if we're not doing the job, then how are we going to fix it? So I'll be the first one to sit there and look at the numbers and say, okay, what are we doing? Like, we need to change something here. So I want to, everybody has to be responsible and accountable. And if Mr. Smiley says he needs 5 more bylaw officers to get to project to what we want to see as revenues, then I hold them to it, right? So then where are the reports? Well, 5, is it justified or not? Well, doesn't look like to me. Something's right. Something's not adding up. So then your 5 are gone or whatever. It's like, but at the end of the day, it's accountability. But these numbers will never get to where we want to see them to say justify a parking program. But I think the right machines, whether it's gated arm machines in parking lots, and downtown core has a few machines of paid parking, harbor and the boat launch, it's yet to be determined. But I think you just got to find that right machine and then price point as well.
Thank you. Through you, Steve, to I guess the group, and to Councillor Maris. One thing the numbers in 2023 do not include is permit parking. We took that out. So that might be an option for, and I don't know that, like, I don't know what line it would have been included in previous years. I assume street and harbor paid parking. But that might be an avenue as well to help. I think I said this in the previous meeting that as a business owner, I am quite willing to pay $100 a year, and there's probably quite a few people that would pay a fee like that to park in the downtown, seasons pass, whatever you call it. So that might be an avenue for increasing revenues. I will concur with Mr. Campbell that and I think I said it earlier, that I don't want to become that downtown that everybody gets a ticket. So enforcement is necessary. I concur with Councillor Meredith that paid parking turns over traffic, and then people don't sit there, and I get all of that. I'd like to find that balance where people are not offended, and they're not they're coming into the downtown, they're still shopping, they're still spending their money. We keep it to a reasonable level. $1 an hour is probably too low, but $5 an hour in this town, probably way too high when Penetang doesn't charge anything. And, we've got some competition around. So that's why I put my hand up for this committee, was because I wanted to see if we could strike that balance and make this work. I would hate for the town to declare any of the parking lots surplus land and get rid of them because they're not paying for themselves. So I get that as well. I do have a bit of a problem with these costs if they are including clearing the street. It's a street in downtown. It's a street in Midland, like any other street in Midland. Why does it have to come out of the I get the parking lots, but why do the street cleaning and maintenance and the garbage pickup and everything? You do that in your parks, you do that everywhere. Little Lake Park does not bring in revenue. So, but you pick up garbage there. So why is that included? And why do we have to recoup the cost in the parking program? In my opinion, the parking program should be generated and generate revenues to cover the cost of having that program, which includes the municipal parking lots. I'll take that. But again, we should be sharing some of those costs with the Harborfront if it's their customers that are using them. Peterson Park, if it's their customers that are using them, some of those costs should be allocated and prorated to those other areas. That will significantly, I think, bring the costs. It may be a little bit more in line with what the downtown-ish parking program could cover. So Mr. Farquharson stepped away, but I was going to add that in my opinion, I don't know that we need to have every single line item broken down. Earlier, and again, just to clarify, I was hoping just to see what what were true expenses to what we need to do going forward. So just clarification on that. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Copeland. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said there. And I think for us to have a successful parking program, we definitely need to, you know, make money off those lots. You know, I recall people, you know, during one of the pauses in the program, people were calling me nonstop. You know, they just wanted to secure their parking spot. You know, make sure that they had a place to park, and obviously it was more people who were making, you know, more than the minimum wage, you know, working at the dentist office or stuff like that. They were more than willing to pay the $350 or whatever, which wouldn't be you know, doable for everyone necessarily, but yeah, I think we definitely need to bring the lots back into the equation and generate revenue from them. And also, someone needs to make the difficult decision to get rid of the seniors free parking at the harbor because there's over 900, you know, seniors who have signed up for this. And there's not even 900 parking spots. So when we're selling, when the slips are being sold, you know, I think, you know, out of an SSRC or where, however they do it, you know, we're having to tell people we can't guarantee you parking, you know, so that's not a good way to do business. So these are the tough decisions. And I was hoping that was going to go away. But yeah, obviously it's a tough political thing to break that news, obviously to those seniors. But yeah, I think it's something that we have to do. And I agree with some reallocation of some of these lines because it's very difficult to live up to for sure.
Thank you. Just one further comment to that through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley. I think we talked about in the last meeting, and this is something that maybe we can consider as we're rolling this out. But perhaps placards could be issued to seniors and then they just hang them on their mirror when they're in the downtown and they can park anywhere. They're not, 900 of them are not going to come down here and park at once. So they, like, if they want to continue that program, maybe it becomes something like that. Like, I live in Tiny Township. They give us a placard for our car and we can park anywhere in the township where other people can't. So maybe that kind of program. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Copeland. And that was an idea that we did bring forward in one of the reports that was in the previous PowerPoint presentation where, you know, people were having difficulty using the machines. You know, they can be intimidating with all change. These things happen. We did do our best to try to educate anyone who's willing to listen. We had the machine at town hall where you don't have the pressure of, being on the street with a lineup behind you trying to sort it out. But yeah, we brought forward, okay, as seasons pass for people who have zero interest in ever touching a machine. So that is absolutely something that I think should be considered. And like you said, either a rear view mirror hanger or the way they do it at Pete Peterson, with the sticker that's affixed to the inside. So you're not sharing them between vehicles, we're hoping. And but yeah, that is a good option to take care of that demographic that is aging and it doesn't at this stage of their life, it doesn't want to learn new technology.
I think part of what hasn't come up so far is, well, actually, I've got two different points. One is, I think that $66,000 is partly due to the fact that there's no signage in the downtown. People drive in from out of town, they park, the meters are in between two trees and other parked cars. Nobody even knows they're there. And what do you do in Canada or anywhere in North America? You pull up, you stop, you look at the signs and say, can I park here? You pull up here, there's no signs. That means I can park here. There's no red, there's no signs. The units are not visible. So I just want to point out, there's no numbers in here to improve the visibility and communication about the actual parking program and what the rules are, right? I think everybody here, I think what we've seen as everything's been free is we don't have a ton of issues right now. And people are actually trying to follow the rules and they're trying to be good to each other and they're actually not really, we could have a lot of problems, right? That have the same car parked there for 4 weeks right now. It's not happening, right? There's a few things that are going on. I think a lot of it is just more about communicating and getting that clear. I think the other thing to point out in general, and it hasn't come up, if you look at these numbers, it's a little confusing with COVID and things like that. I've had it suggested to me that, well, maybe there will be a time when it's busy downtown and there aren't more parking spots. I would argue, oh yeah, that was before the internet and smartphones. That was before big box stores. That was before Amazon. That was before remote work. Half the people that work for the town aren't here, right, today, I would bet. So a lot of the downtown vibe and a lot of the presence and a lot of that is being ghosted everywhere. And we'll never have a 2005 parking year ever again. Now, maybe when the town doubles in size or triples in size or something, right? Eventually, when we had Buttercup, Buttertart Festival, I would laughed at one point during the day. I was like, so this is what it would be like to have a store in a city with 500,000 people. Yeah, that's what it would be like every day, right? If you had 500,000 people, but it's not that, right? We don't have that situation. So I think we need to be sensitive to that, and that the downtown, the businesses, and the people here are under pressure, right? I think the best evidence, I have two little bits of evidence because I don't have a ton of this because we don't have a lot of data here. One of them is, it looks to me like the town dock is only 30 to 40% occupied this year, and rates went up, and they've all moved somewhere else. Where I'm talking about where they moved to, but I think we know where they moved to, because if you're in a boat, you'll see exactly where they are next door. But it's a cautionary thing, I think, when you start thinking about trying to get more money out of people right now. It's just a little flick of the wrist that takes them to another place or to another business or something else like that. Another thing to point out is that I just saw an article in the Aurelian newspaper in the last week at the Bake by the Lake, or the bakery that's been there and was successful for a number of years. They're closing. They said their two biggest reasons for closing. One is they had the giant construction project in Aurelian, and that took people away. The second one is the city jacked up parking rates, and it's pissed people off, and they're not coming downtown as much anymore. And they've seen at least a 30% decline. So I think it's just cautionary for us to think about, there's not that much to squeeze out of the people right now, right? And there's not much there that is up for grabs. And people aren't going to mind if it's convenient and that sort of thing, but we just have to watch the negative effect of these things, especially when you have, nobody really knows where the line between Penetang and Midland is, right? And where you know what I mean? Like, in people's minds, I go down to the boathouse. I didn't even realize the boathouse, you were supposed to pay for parking previously, because I always thought that the spots in front of them, no signage again. But for most people, it's not really that clear to understand what the rules are and why they are the way they are. And it's a sensitive subject with people, right? And it only takes a little bit to fuck people one way or the other these days, for sure. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. So this is what this committee's for. We're gonna bring recommendations to council, and this is our job. And bring those recommendations, and then council will just, hopefully take those into consideration and come up with this parking program. So, but I think we just got to start moving along and get off of the
No, I agree.
finance part of it, or we're going to be here till.
Exactly. And I think we just know from the surface
Yeah.
of it that the finance part of it, there's no easy answer here, right? And that we can slice and dice this 20 different ways, or we could ask people to look at, do we really need to do this or that? But the fundamental thing is really more about trying to figure out some solutions or some recommendations, right, about what to actually do given the situation, rather than dwelling too much on it. And I think there's a number of ways we could go about doing that, but I think that's part of, maybe what we can do is, maybe we should finish up your presentation, because we've totally derailed you the whole way here, and get through, because I think you've got a little more information in here for us too, right? Which will start to help us think about, because one of the things I think about is, it's not all exactly the same, right? The parking spots here, the parking lot behind that store, this and that, it's not exactly the same. There's actually several patterns or several places, and maybe that's one of the things this could help us with, is to kind of understand that and get a better understanding of the parking situation and patterns over time.
Very good. Through the chair to the committee. And yeah, one of the other resolutions that came from the previous meeting was the parking areas that were most used. So at the top of the map is the harbor there. And those were by far the biggest money makers, especially the one in front of the boathouse. And second to that was the parking terminal that's by the Swan. And that brought in about between 10 at the Swan and about 15,000 in front of the boathouse there. So that by far was the most used parking machine. Second on the list was on King Street, and specifically the east side of King Street, between Hugel and Elizabeth Street. So, you know, if you're driving north of the right side there, you know, Dino's, I think the TD Bank, you know, yeah. So, and you could take a lot from that, but, you know, maybe that's people coming from out of town, you know, our North Simcoe neighbors coming into town, and, you know, those are the most convenient spots to park while they do their shopping. And then, after that was Elizabeth Street, specifically by the library. So, the west side of King, exactly right there. Those two machines, brought in between $2,400 and $3,000. And sorry, I forgot to mention, that previous section, King Street, east side between Hugel and Elizabeth, those brought in, and I think it was about 4 machines there, 2,400 to 4,300 on those. So yeah, those are the areas of the system that are used the most. You know, I don't recommend making, if we're trying to generate revenue, you know, obviously Midland Avenue and First Street were by far the least. It wasn't even worthwhile having the machines there, especially when you had to pay that amount per machine. So, you know, my suggestion going forward, if we continue with this, you know, maybe we don't put machines on those, and we just sign it, you know, either with QR codes and advising that, yep, you could park here, but it is paid parking. If you want to use a machine, you can attend, you know, we have a little list of where the machines are, or use your smartphone to pay. So yeah, next slide of the PowerPoint, Sarah. And Mr. Farquharson went through all this. So yeah, one of the other asks was exactly what does it cost for the municipal lots? And that grand total is 152,400. And Steve went through, or Mr. Farquharson, we got 2 Steves, went through that on everything that covers that. Moving on to the next slide. You know, the request was for that study that was conducted, and that was sent out to committee members for your review. Next slide.
If I could just comment on that, and this goes back to, thank you for the clarification on the email communication, and I get that now, so that was helpful. That there was nothing in that WSCS report about a $978,000 revenue number, right? There was a 60 cost and a 30 revenue or something like that, right? 30-60, and I think even the numbers were jumbled in their report, right? I think there was a mistake in there. And I think the suggestion was something like a purchase of 10 machines in those high density areas, right, down by the waterfront and that sort of thing, I think is what the suggestion had been. So just to clarify, I think that was the content of that report. And if I didn't miss anything, that was the one some people had referenced as being, well, that was the source of the $1 million in revenue number. I don't think we have that, and I don't think that maybe it didn't ever exist, or maybe it was from the vendor who was selling the machines. I don't know where the number came from.
Yeah, through the chair to the chair.
Mm.
Yeah, and I recall in your email about that, you asked if there was other studies, and yeah, there was another study, and it's almost a bad word around here. It was a KPMG study that was done in 2012, and you know, and so that may be something we can look at. I haven't read it, but my understanding is, you know, it is why the staffing levels are much lower than they were back in 2012 is because of the advice of that study. And I'm not sure if it touched on parking at all in that, but that was another potential read if you're looking for it. Yeah, so I did meet with Kim Cruson, who is our manager of procurement, and kind of discussed how our first meeting went and what the asks were. And based on that discussion, she suggested we kind of hold a mini trade show and hold that at the upstairs of the NSSRC. And to do that, we need to post an ad for companies that are interested. And if we were able to go ahead with that, we need to ensure, just to make sure we're in compliance with all the procurement legislation. We got to give everyone an equal opportunity. It would be our best bet in order to gather information from potential providers. And Kim would like to be present for that, just to keep the vendors in line, I believe she said. And we need to prepare questions and kind of make sure we're asking the same questions to each and giving everyone the same opportunity. We're targeting to do that, but we are under a tight time frame with this, with needing to have an answer or a recommendation for council by October. So we're hoping to, yeah, and it's a difficult ask, but we want the committee members to give us a date at the end of August where you guys could basically give us the entire day. And I know that's difficult to ask when most everyone here, I believe, is an entrepreneur. But yeah, that's the best way to do it. There's potential we may not get any interest. We don't know, but we'd like to advertise it, have a date where people, they come do a 20-minute presentation, maybe have a 20 minutes, question and answer, and then maybe a break in between vendors. And so obviously it's difficult to say how many companies will show interest in this, but that's the best way we think to move forward and get the information, ask the difficult questions based on, the feedback we had from the previous parking program, to see what solutions other potential vendors have to move us forward so we can get to that recommendation for council by budget time. So yeah, we can open it up for more discussion, but yeah, my goal out of this meeting today is to get you guys to give me a date where we're all available at the end of August. So I can have Kim start to advertise this. And I understand it's a difficult ask, but
Yeah, well, that's great. Let's take a look at calendars here, and if everybody could just take a second here and maybe get into that conversation. Bill, you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Steve. So the end of August, myself and I think Councillor East, we have AMO. So anywhere from the 18th to the 21st, we're away. We're in Ottawa. So that week is probably not the best. Could probably do it on the Friday, the 23rd at the earliest that week. That's coming back on a Wednesday, then
Yeah, and that won't work for me. So
Okay.
week of 26. Does
So-
anybody have concerns week of 26?
I'm wide open. So
And it looks like Labor Day, just to clarify, Labor Day looks like the second this year, so it's a relatively early and for Labor Day, and that probably a busy weekend for people, but does anybody have concerns during that week of the 26th? Friday's no good. I think that's fair. Going into a long weekend, it's, you could, like I say, Russia could attack and no one would notice till Tuesday, you know? Yeah, yeah. And then it looked like Thursday, because of these meetings, we were relatively free from the council side at least, and other commitments right from the town side. So would maybe we just shoot for the 29th and pencil it in. '27. Yeah, maybe 27.
What would better work with procurement and setting up those dates, or does she want one specific one? Doesn't matter. If we both agree, if we agree to the 27th or the 28th. But, and then she would probably put that, oh, go ahead, Carrie Ann. Okay. It's 28th, good for you?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Meredith, it would be great if we could give her the date. But obviously if we can't commit to it yet, but I don't know exactly what the, you know, what the procurement legislation states in terms of, you know, timelines we need to meet in order to get this ad posted so we can start collecting these. So it would be fantastic if we could settle on the 28th. You know, that would be best to move us forward here.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let's pencil that in and then see if go back and check and see if we can actually make that work and everybody can double check their days.
And if I could just ask one question through the chair. This process, this mini trade show would say we get a, you know, a handful or less than a handful of companies coming in, would they be would they wouldn't all be in the room? I'd imagine they'd be one at a time coming in, and would they have a machine there that we would be able to kind of play around with and see the ease of the use, or would that just be through a slideshow presentation? Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Meredith, I can confirm it. It would be one at a time, absolutely. And then that's why I think Ms. Cruzen mentioned, you know, a 20-minute gap in between. You know, I don't know. Maybe we could put a stipulation where, yeah, bring the hardware. Maybe in the advertisement. We can discuss that further with procurement. And yeah, obviously it would be great to be hands-on. But yeah, we can get further details on that.
And just to follow up, is there more to your presentation here on, or can we talk about what we'd like to, the information that we would like in our next meeting, I guess?
Through the chair to Councillor Meredith, presentation complete.
A portion of the presentation, based on the volume, the high volume of usage at the harbor, at King Street, on Elizabeth. And then you also mentioned that the machines didn't even really pay for themselves on Midland or on First Street and portions of Midland Ave. You've kind of briefly mentioned maybe we put QR codes there or something like that. I mean, I would also like to stay at this point. Maybe I don't think that doing away with all of free parking is a great PR move at this point. And if you are underutilized the side streets, I mean, maybe a chance to still offer some free parking and not have to spend any extra money on enforcement, because if you're not making the money off of the machine by usage of coin, I think you're stretching it to go and use enforcement on those side streets, especially if it's underutilized, to spend money, any extra money at the time to go and get the least used areas of town with fines. So, you know, maybe it's a concept to think that further back you go, maybe there's still some free parking, and that could be part of the rollout where you say, hey, look, yeah, obviously in front of Dino's, you're gonna have to pay 25 cents for every 15 minutes or for every 10 minutes or something like that, right? But you want to park for free for a little bit longer, why not go on First Street, south of Elizabeth? You know, like there's great opportunity there to park. Or it seems contradictory when you say the machines don't even pay for themselves, but now you're maybe looking to tell people that they have to scan a QR code, which is, we know for a fact there's a certain portion of the population that aren't really that savvy with some of the hardware you tried to install originally. I don't know if a QR code South Elizabeth on First Street is going to be gobbled up by somebody looking for some parking there. Just a thought.
No, through the chair to Mr. Campbell. Yeah, absolutely. You know, maybe, and that could be a recommendation of the committee, okay? Maybe First Street and Midland Avenue are free parking for those who you want to, you know, who are able-bodied and can make those you know, walk that to the downtown. But from the leader of the department side of things that's been tasked with kind of trying to generate revenue, I'm hesitant to give back, you know, something that has been determined to be paid parking, because, you know, I witnessed firsthand what happened when all the lots were made free, you know. You know, the homeless kind of took over, almost in certain lots. And yeah, you know, from a revenue generation, but yeah, but that can be, you know, a recommendation of the committee for sure, that we can put in front of council to, you know, some paid parking, but obviously you need to adjust the projections, I would say, if we're going to take away. But when you take away, you're also saving that money from the software and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a fine balance for sure.
Through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley, just as a follow-up to that, instead of offering maybe all of those streets as free parking, maybe some of them could be permit parking spots. Instead of using up the resources in the parking lots, maybe some of the permit parking could be on those side streets, intertwined with maybe some of the free, so that, again, you don't have 50 spots that are all free and people are not using the paid parking. Maybe generate some revenue that way. Just maybe on each block, there's 2 or 3 permit parking spots or something there.
Yeah, and through you, Steve, and just commenting on Mr. Campbell and about the hotspot. You know, if there's clear signage on and the recommendation made from the committee say, no, we don't want to put parking any type of machine or technology on the side streets, and just focus on the main street and so forth. But if we do a hotspot, that the only thing with that is then you're deflecting people to other areas, which they don't want to pay, which is fine. Which if you want to be closer, you pay. If you want to be further, you don't pay. If we do some type of hotspot, you know, technology kind of parking, which obviously will be a lot less expensive than putting a machine there, so forth. We just have to have clear signage. So that could be a recommendation from the committee as well. If and not everything that you recommend, council will take. They may debate and say, yeah, let's hold off on these side streets and save them for, you know, permit parking for businesses and so forth. But at the end of the day, I think whatever we brainstorm here and we gotta do it quick. And I wanna add as well as, you know, we're given a timeline. But in no means, if we're not ready for a recommendation, we don't want to jump into this and spend a ton of money and it fail, right? We got one crack at this and I don't want to be on this committee and be labeled as, you know, pointing the finger at me for these parking meters and no one else wants. So we want to do it right. So the information that, I guess, and I'll add to, for, you know, the information that needed for our next meeting would be, you know, how many in your report that you did, the most used areas, King Street, the harbor. Obviously we're gonna put something at the boat launch. Like what type of number of meters are we looking at? Are we gonna get you know, certain you know, costs kind of what we'd be looking at, or is this in the procurement kind of stage on the August? Because that's getting a little late, right? So we would probably want to be armed with some information on what type of machine we're kind of looking at, or you know, the cost of maybe an arm in the back lots where it doesn't have to be, you know, what am I looking for here? It doesn't have to be enforced. Thank you very much. Enforced. No, that's good. I need help most times. So, and then will that drastically, you know, would that have a big impact on the bottom line if we don't have to enforce those laws, or we still have to enforce them, right? So, but I think those arms come with a big ticket cost too. But we want to get all the information that we possibly can. I'm not into those big ticket costs with the arms and so forth, because I think with the arm, I think you still need a kiosk of where you have to, you know, pay like at the hospital, right? So I don't think that's an option. But someone here might think it's an option. I don't know. But where can we get some of these options laid out? And then we were with Precise ParkLink previous. We have 70 machines sitting there. And if we deal with Precise ParkLink again, is there, you know, can we get you know, some dollars for that as a trade-in? I don't know if that's you know, have we gone to Precise and maybe ask him the question, or can we to see if that may, or do we just I'm not sure, are they out for tender right now? Are they out for sale at the moment? And have we had any luck with that? Not that that may be an interesting, if ParkLink was able to absorb some of the costs of these new machines, if we go with them, that might be an option as well. If the machine that we see at this mini trade show, you know, is the right fit.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So they haven't been posted on Gov Deal. I think that's probably who we'll end up using. And the reason for that is we're waiting till we get all of them out. So just as an update for the committee on the existing machines on King Street. So we had to get some bowlers manufactured in order to cover the cables and the electrical conduits. So those are now ready to go. They've been manufactured. We're trying to get coordination done with the electrician, because the electrician's got to be there right when they take them off. They kind of take it off, cap it, and then we'll have I think it's Fred Hook come over and install the bowlers first. So once those are all done, which should happen fairly soon, once we have all the machines off, then we'll post them. And the reason why the manager of facilities and fleet didn't want to just put up half of them, and he'd rather put everything up all at once. And if we get someone to buy them all, then we get someone to buy them all. Yeah. But as part of this process, you know, if Precise wants to come and they got a different type of machine, then they can come in and do the pitch and show us a different type of machine. And then the committee can review that, and then it's part of the recommendations back to council.
So I guess the one thing I would like to see in this day, is that we don't just think about which machines to buy, but that people could come with proposed solutions and ideas and, what are we going to do at the waterfront? What are we going to do here? What makes sense here? And actually do some of the groundwork and maybe maybe that's part of the information we can provide to them, right? Like some of the things that you showed today, right? What were the busy machines? Where's the traffic? Where are the problems? Do we have behavior issues or is it just a revenue discussion? And have the door a little bit wider, fairly widely open to anybody who comes in with a suggestion, right? Because I think the way that the technology around this is going and the possibilities of what you see in other municipalities, that there's definitely interesting ideas that people have and things that have actually worked. And it's a little bit more than chalk on tires. But even those have challenges, right? Like, for example, if we got into this from an enforcement thing and there was some more technology and I don't know, you get text messages when somebody needs a ticket or those sorts of things. Well, is there a way we could tangibly reduce the enforcement cost, but still have the right behavior and the right revenue out of that too, right? So I think that we should probably just leave the door open, right, to something a little bit more than just equipment and hardware swap out kind of conversations, if that's appropriate. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Yeah, good.
Yeah, through the chair to the committee. And yeah, and maybe that's something that we can write into the, I believe it's an expression of interest that procurement would send out. Not only just to show us their technology, but take a look at our website or come down to our town and see the current paid park, well, the previous paid parking areas that are still in the bylaw, and what are your ideas for that and gear your presentation towards that and sell us on what your technology is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we can discuss that with the manager of procurement to put that in motion.
Now, just thank you through you, Steve. I was just in the city in the last couple of days, and I was looking at the parking systems, and they had very, different parking systems, like meters on different streets. Some are older, some are newer. Some had just you put in the code through the app on the phone. Others were, had all the options in the machine, which is how do you want to pay? Whether it's credit card, cash, or by coin, or by tap, or through the app, the green park or something like that. That green P. Yeah, so it gave you options, very easy, 1, 2, or 3. You hit the button, then the screen took you to whatever you're doing, right? So put a loonie. They offered all coin based. I don't think I would do that. That's a lot of handling on coin. I would either do a loonie or a toonie in the machine. But it seemed pretty straightforward by the looks of the machine, right? You weren't hitting a button, then the machine took you through the steps. You kind of read your steps on the outside and you hit the button and what you wanted to say, and then it took you through the process. So I thought that was kind of cool, kind of neat. Different, as you said, different streets had different some were well, the high traffic ones seem to be the more information on it, more options. The ones on the side streets were less, all right, more of a using your smartphone with less options. So just wanted to point that out. And but again, we're not the city. We're looking for east, a lot of senior citizens. That's coin based. I'm almost a senior citizen. 55 is senior citizen, right? So I'll be coin based in another year. So, but at the end of the day, that's where it's Midland, Ontario, which we need to address these meters to, not to the city, but and eventually the lifespan of these machines are do we get 20 years out of them, Mr. Smiley, or is it less than that?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Meredith, it's the previous parking machines we had was a 10-year life expectancy.
So not a very long time, right, for these machines to be active. But that's life expectancy, and I'm sure these machines that I saw were I've seen some age really, really old ones in Collingwood that they're slowly replacing with new ones. So but yeah, so 10 years isn't a long time, so we don't want to, I don't think 70 machines probably is not the way we want to go, but once we get, so to your point, Steve, were we looking for the date in August, the 28th, to get this information, or can we get this information prior to or should we, like, if we get it on the 28th, and we're looking for an answer in September, I guess that mini trade show that's when we're gonna either decide everything, right? Like, we gotta kind of absorb all that information, but let's say, well, if we don't like anything there, then we're into 2025 without a parking program, I'm assuming, so.
It is gonna get pretty tight. I was wondering about whether we shouldn't meet a little bit earlier to start thinking through these things, right? It's not like there's 25 different options here, right? There's gonna be some options. And one of the things we could do is I like where you're going today, Mr. Smythe, with the areas and where was busy and where is our, where's our, there's two sides to it, right? Where's the behavioral issue and where's the revenue opportunity, right? And what's the best way to handle that? And what's the most, where do we want to go, right? Do we want this to be more of a welcoming thing? Do we want it more of a revenue thing? Like I think we could get between the group, right? We could get a little bit better sense of what the sentiment is from this committee, right? And where we'd like to see some of those things go. And maybe do that by area. And I mean, other novel ideas that we could all come with our proposal and present to each other. And, like 12 Angry Men, if we're all on the same page and we're all voting guilty, then we're done, right? And if we're in very different places with different ideas, which I think there's some differences of ideas in this group from what I've heard. But it might be good just to hear each other out, right? About how could this work and what would that be like, and just immerse ourselves a little bit in the moment of like, what would it actually be like to be downtown and have that kind of thing going on. So those are a couple ideas, right? Where we could think a little bit about how we might want to see this thing organized in terms of the geographic areas and some of the goals or some of the things we would like to see, and maybe get our heads around that. And the second one is, could we even go as far as present a little mini plan? I'm not saying it has to be a big plan. I'm thinking like 3 slides, right? And 1 picture, right? Where we could maybe share that kind of information and just see where everybody's at, right? On the thinking, and if we have because I don't think it's good for us to try and just drive out one answer on one day, and you know what I mean? It's something that's going to take a little bit of time, and if we get all that information back at the end of August, it'd be nice to already be like, oh yeah, that totally tracks, and that one makes no sense, and you know what I mean? Because we don't want to be like wading through that stuff for a month or so after the fact, right? In August. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yeah, through the chair to the committee. Yeah, there's nothing stopping us from all doing our own research on this and coming back with ideas like that. And I would encourage us all to do it because, with the resolutions from the last, the initial meeting, it was a lot for me to bring, while also, running, the municipal bylaw and the proper standards and the licensing and all the other things. So yeah, I encourage everyone to do their own research and come up with their ideas and bring them forward. And that's the way we're going to be successful in making a recommendation. And like Councillor Meredith said, they may take our recommendation, they may not. So but our mandate is to give a recommendation. So.
Thank you. Through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley. If we're pulling numbers or doing things, is there any way to get data on how many permits were sold and the revenue made from the permits when we had permit parking? Is that probably a stat we could, because if we're going to reintroduce it, it'd be nice to know how successful it was and the change in revenue. Like, did we sell more when it dropped from 360 to 100? I'm kind of interested in that transition, just because it sounds like permit parking might be a key to this. So we're going to have to recommend a rate. So if any information that we can get on that would be probably very helpful as well.
Yeah, through the chair to Ms. Copeland. Yeah, I think those numbers are available. I know, previous to my employment here, I think they were selling permits in-house, so we will have stats on that. I maintained a good relationship with Precise Park Link and he was kind enough to run these numbers for me that got us this information on the most used machines. So we did use iPass as you'll remember for at least a year. And so yeah, they would be able to get that information, and yeah, I could bring that back.
So if we're getting towards the tail end of the discussion, maybe we should talk a little bit about plans for the next meeting. Any ideas or thoughts about where to go for our next meeting? I threw out a couple of ideas, but what do you guys want to do?
Thank you through you, Steve. I'd like to know, just from, I don't know if you already noted it, but I'd like to know what the recommendation from, your perspective is, Mr. Smiley, for how many, machines, physical machines, similar to the ParkLink machine that we had, that would be needed, in the high density areas. So, King Street, the harbor, the boat launch, and then, I guess the municipal parking lots. I don't know what that number entails, if it's, 50, 40, 30. But that number would probably, and then obviously, Steve, you probably have some other, ideas on some parking, maybe not as costly, maybe it's not a machine, more through, or anybody here on the committee, to bring that forward as well, that idea for the next meeting, to kind of see, where everybody's kind of thinking, and then, because right now I'm machine based, because I'm not a techie person at all. I want to drop a coin in and that's it, right? So, but everybody, Steve's more technical savvy, I believe, than I am, and I'm not sure. Probably most of you here are better off than me, but I'd like to see those other ideas. And if I've been on the internet, but I've been looking at machines, not other kind of avenues. But it would be interesting to see what everybody's thinking about, and maybe it's it'll change my mind here and there. Who knows, right? So, but it's all about I guess moving traffic, the ease, and then the revenue thing. With the ease of use of a machine, the revenues, we've already said it's with adding all those expenses in, we're not going to hit any target of profits. But and I don't think the municipalities that are run differently than a coffee shop or a bar or a clothing retail, right? Or for cheese, right? Or in the food business. So it is different, and I'm learning that, and not everything is, made to make money, but we need to, you know, it has to make sense, but we're not losing 400 or 600, $400,000 a year on it, right? So, but in fairness, plowing King Street and doing all that shouldn't be compiled against those revenues, right? So you're gonna lose right off the bat. So, but anyways, I'm rambling here. Just some options of what everybody's thinking would be great. Thank you.
So let's do that as a agenda item then for the next time around, and maybe what we can do is for those that want to present or have some ideas to present at the next meeting, we'll just coordinate through Mr. Smiley, right? To say, yeah, definitely got something, and then just we can get materials together and can help organize that, and then we don't have the town hall on email thing. We can just sort of keep that a little more focused. Um, and, and, and have that for the next meeting. And should we have a motion to actually do that? It doesn't really matter to me that much if we do, but just, maybe we just get it in our minutes and that's fine. The other thing that came to mind, Bill, while you were speaking there was, should we be also making a recommendation, because one of the central questions I think that led to this committee was actually whether or not the ask would be for this amount of money, the delta here, to be levied against the downtown businesses, whether it would be, paid as just part of general taxes through the town, whether it be some other approach on this. Is that part of what we need to recommend as well? It's like we're, the extra, let's call it the extra 400 right now. Are we gonna make a recommendation on who should pay for that? Because that was a thing that led to the conversation here, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair to the committee and maybe Councillor Emeritus can comment on it too, because, but I believe, it was a motion from the mayor. And I believe he took that back, about the downtown tax levy. My suggestion is if we were not to have a parking system, it would be shared amongst, the entire tax base. But yeah, I'm not a tax person. Obviously, I am bylaw enforcement, but that would be my suggestion. And just to, I remember Mr. Chair was saying earlier that some people didn't know that you needed to pay for parking, but and they're going to know even less with less machines, especially. But maybe we just, more on the main arteries and then heavier signage on the arterials. And then with the options to, hit up King Street or, maybe the top of King and the bottom of King is almost like a little drive-through where you can get your ticket. And I think it would be easier if we had a one price for the harbor and everywhere, and then make it interchangeable. Okay, pull into the harbor, get your ticket, and it's good for all the entire parking area, same rate across the board, just to simplify it.
Through you, Steve, to Mr. Smiley, I would agree that it should be interchangeable. They should be able to pay at my store and then go up the street to the library and still, if their ticket is, or whatever it is, says that they've paid, they've paid. I agree with Councillor Emeritus that it needs to be easy, and like everybody, when the new machines came in, anybody that I talked to, they're like, why did you just leave the coin machines? I could drop a coin in and then it was fine. I understand that's old technology and that's not going to work. It was labor intensive to collect the coins. We had to have one at every parking spot. We don't even have defined parking spots in the downtown because we don't paint lines anymore. So that would be a whole nightmare. And I get that. So it needs to be that fine balance again, between the two. I don't think we can get rid of machines entirely. I don't think our community is there. They couldn't manage the machines that with the technology, let alone go without anything. So I think that's really important. I also think signage is definitely important, and education, but also further to that, when we figure this out and roll it out, I'd like to think that there would be some kind of an education to the public where instead of finding them right away, we, slip a card under their windshield that says, this is paid parking now. This is the location of the meters, and this is how it works. The BIA, when they have a summer student, that could be something that the summer student does too, is just, go around if it is a pay and display, say, and they don't see something on their dash, slip a card under, and then by law, when they come by, okay, somebody's already addressed this, we'll move along. But, I hope there's an education component. I hope it's not like just wham in your face. This is it. This is how it's done. And I like Scott's suggestion earlier of maybe, easing and having some free parking still in the downtown core, that people that really want it, they'll walk for it. If they really want it, they'll walk for it. If we're going to still offer some kind of a seniors program, they're the one, obviously anybody with a disability I would hope would fall under that, whether they're a senior or not. So we can tailor this that all these things are thought about, and like I said, we can offer placards to seniors or disabled that they can park for free wherever. They're not all going to come at the same time. I wouldn't think, maybe for Butter Tart, but that's a whole other mess. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate those kinds of things. And I feel like education is a big component to this. And let's ease everybody into it rather than just throw it in their face and hope they run with it. Thank you.
Through you back to Carrie Ann. Glad to hear you say that. At the initial rollout of the new parking system, we had asked as the BIA for the opportunity to print fake tickets. And I remember having a conversation, can we give this to your bylaw officers and you have them for maybe the next month, like kind of go through this. That request was denied at the time. And immediately went into enforcement. So this is where I have a bad taste in my mouth about like aggressive enforcement. We had asked for this kind of thing, like, can we just, and I know that we were told that the enforcement won't be as aggressive, but still. And maybe it's time for the discussion again, like maybe we work with the town. That I think one of the issues that we had was that there was no timeline between the meters are being installed today and we're putting them live next week. At least we have a bit of a buffer here and we can talk maybe a little bit more about it. Because we had come up with that idea where we slip things under the windows and maybe it's the BIA people or maybe it's bylaw. We could work together, right? We make it look like a ticket and people come up and they're like, oh crap, I got a ticket. And they pull it. It was like, you've been saved by the BIA, right? And maybe the BIA, and we talked about this, can we print coupons on the back? Like, hey, go redeem this fake ticket for 10% off at Dino's or something like that. So having the time to discuss it a little bit longer before the rollout, I think is a definite benefit. And I think that you're right in that we need to have that buffer, right, between now and the rollout.
Yeah, thank you through you, Steve. And then just to further comment on Mr. Campbell. That is, I know the past experiences in parking has been, haven't been the greatest. That's what we're trying to wipe out right now, right? So we want to look forward to this whole new system and get rid of all the negativity that has to do with the past. As well with when you're talking about that type of ticket system with the BIA. The BIA, if they know in advance and if this is an initiative that, its members would like, we have our AGM coming up. I think it's in September, October. You'll probably get the emails soon, September. This could be heavily voiced and in the budget of the BIA, we can set aside, let's say $10,000 or whatever, right? Or just to 5,000 or whatever that amount is for a coupon or whatever. And then the BIA would go around, the student or whoever would do that on the parking ticket, on some type of promotion like that. So that's a BIA initiative that can 100% be done. But we just need the membership to show up at the AGM or at some of the meetings and bring that up, which and I'll even bring it up at the next meeting, maybe. Instead, I think we did in the past, we gave about 7,000 to the downtown. Maybe we can do something like that for, oh, we see you got a ticket, reach out to the BIA and blah, 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 right? Maybe get a $25 credit for downtown dollars. If it's a ticket, 25, we'll offset it with a $25 spend downtown Midland or something like that. But that is a BIA initiative and we glad to do that, 100%. So as far as that, anything can be done with that to spin a positive experience downtown versus that $25 ticket. And the use of the machine and when you're talking about education to the machine, that the machine that we put forth in the downtown and the high traffic areas should educate itself. And this is because if I'm a newbie coming into Midland, I'm not educated, right? And I'm coming in and I walk up to that machine. It should educate me right then and there. I shouldn't have to come to town hall to educate. This is the machine that I want to see in our downtown, where it's self-explanatory. East, right? Here's your options, 1, 2, 3. Clearly seen, sun, even whether it's sunny or not, and it's fully explained, right? And that's the machine I'm looking for. That it teaches you how to use it as you go. It shouldn't be a problem because when we're a tourist town and the people coming to our town should have a positive experience. And if they can't use the machine, which they have, then we haven't done the right thing, the right choice on that machine, right? So that's what I'm looking for from this committee to, or myself anyways, to fix that problem. But any type of promotion with parking, moving forward after we get this program in. And obviously we're gonna, the rollout of this program, or the BI is gonna be heavily, I assume, I'm the rep, so I'll make sure that they're well aware in advance of when the rollout's coming in, the type of machine and so forth, and then reaching out to the community. I'm sure the town website as well will have it. So we don't have the fallout of, but I'm expecting you come down to that machine and it's like a pleasant experience to pay. That's the goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, through you to the committee. I'll put this forward when I bring my ideas to the next meeting, but one thing that I felt was sorely lacking with the previous system was there was no way for merchants to intervene. So people would come into my store and they'd be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. If I had an app on my computer that I could go, you know what? There, I've just paid for I validated your parking, what's your license plate, whatever it is, however it is. If we can have a system where merchants can intervene and we can either give them a coupon that they can throw in there for a free dollar or a free hour, I don't know what it is, but I would really like to see something that merchants can say, okay, you know what, we care. We absolutely want you here. We invite you to be here. Let us help you with that. And so again, I'll put it as an idea when I bring forth my presentation, but that was something that was sorely lacking in the previous system. We just didn't have any way. And if we're going to have less machines along the way, wouldn't it be great if every store was a kiosk that people could renew their parking or whatever, however it works. I don't know. Just
Yeah, and I'm not through you, Steve, and I'm not as I said, techie, but I'm sure with that app, if that, whether it's the green P or whatever we use, and you have it downloaded as a merchant, you could probably, with, I think it uses their license plate or some type of information, you could probably do it right from your store, right? Or take their handheld if they have it and do it right from there. So that is a little bit of information that we would need. Hey, and the BIA get involved again with its membership, saying this is how you can use the machine through, and you don't have to leave your storefront. So maybe that's something we look at that technology as well in the machine combined with the Coinbase as well. So thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Meredith and the committee. Yeah, and that is actually something that we just kind of entered into with Hotspot, because with the parking terminal being removed from Pete Peterson, it was difficult for us to do any enforcement because we want to make sure it's ethical. We've got all the boxes checked that people had every opportunity to pay. And so we had meetings with Hotspot and they provided us and we changed some signage there that allows people who don't want to use the the app or the QR code or it. So at the harbor and at town hall here, you can come purchase a launching a launch and it can be entered in through a desktop application. So yeah, that I think that is definitely doable, which what Ms. Copeland just discussed.
One final, just through you, Steve. When you're talking about the boat launch and the hotspot app, just how has it been? Like, we haven't got any updates on council, but maybe it's a good thing for the committee to know how that technology, because there isn't a machine down there. You have to use your hotspot. So how is that going? Is there any complaints? I haven't had any emails saying this is ridiculous and so forth, but is there any angry people out there because they didn't use this hotspot or didn't know, or what has your experience been so far?
Yeah, through the chair to the committee, there are some people, we have had some complaints about, people who did, purchase the season's pass and haven't seen much enforcement there. So we have been, and I've been going back and forth. Well, I think it's just one complaint, really. I've been going back and forth a little bit and, they were upset that they paid their $100 and aren't they seem to think they're seeing people who are launching and not paying. And I'm sure it is happening, but we went out there quickly after receiving that information and it turns out all 6 trucks that were in the lot had their 2024 pass. But yeah, now that we've got that sorted out, because it was when the system got canceled, basically, we were still selling those passes and weren't able to do the enforcement because, we need to make sure it's done properly. You don't want to charge people that didn't have an opportunity to pay. So now we've kind of have those boxes checked and there is active enforcement going on down there.
Well, we're
So just, are we going to have a motion or several motions coming out of this presentation? So basically, yeah, what I've got is that the Ad Hoc Parking Committee receive as information the PowerPoint presentation provided by manager of municipal law enforcement. And I just worded it this way, that a tentative date for a mini trade show of vendors be August 28th, 2024. And something you had brought up, I don't know, that staff provide a number of parking machines in high density areas in the old parking program. That was a question. Okay. And then, and that the committee members come forward at the next meeting with recommendations and ideas for the new paid parking program. And
Sorry, through you, Steve, to Ms. Cathcart. I just would like to add that I was hoping to get numbers on permits, how many were sold previously and revenues for however many years they can go back, whatever makes sense. Especially during that transition from the higher fee to the lower, just how did that kind of maybe a couple of years leading up to and after. And then there was one, I had asked maybe if we could understand what amounts in that of those expenses actually truly go to the parking lots. So we can understand kind of what we need to recoup through the program, as opposed to separating out the old machines and technology and things like that. Thank you.
Through you, Steve, are we interested in any type of, I know Mr. Smiley alluded to into some program where you just pay when you come through a gate and then you can park anywhere. I'm not sure if we're interested in any type of information like that. I don't know. I'm thinking about that and I just don't know if people are used, that is something new that you don't see anywhere and people will be so confused. I think if we make it too simple, too easy, like, that would just confuse me, I think. And I'm not sure if that would be an avenue I'd go down. I think people are looking for a machine. And I don't think we are there yet with, the aging community and the way everybody technology is going. I don't think we're there where we have to see, I think, something in front of us to, to physically touch it. That's where I'm at right, right now. But yeah, so do we need any information on that, or do we wait for the 28th to get those options through? But those options may never come if the procurement goes out for the RFP, and then those types of companies do not approach us, right? So are we looking for some background information on that staff can maybe come up with, or do we just kind of, it's a little difficult online to kind of surf. I was looking for machines and I was getting, Precise Link was the big one. There was another one called Parking Box that I got in front of me. Seemed pretty easy, pretty stands out. But I those are the only two I could really find. And Precise Link, I had a bunch of different machines there that did different things. You could add to them the software you could add and so forth. But I don't know if procurement or Mr. Smiley can come out with a sheet of options at our next meeting or not, or are we spinning our wheels there and just kind of, I don't want to take up too much of your time either if it's just information that we're not going to use, right? So just a thought.
Well, maybe some of that'll just come up in the, everyone's gonna present ideas next time. Maybe we'll see what kind of ideas and options come out of that. And then from the marketplace side, what people actually present, here's the situation, here's the lots, here's what's going on, if people see that there's something relevant there and we hear back, like you say, we may not hear from somebody, but then what are we gonna do, right? We don't really know that much about it, and hard to know, right? So maybe that'll be the action too, is just as far as the expression of interest in trying to get that to a list of potential firms, right? That may want to have some interest in this, that making sure that we try to get just from the committee a decent coverage of different things, right? Because there could be anything from an academic person who has an interest in this subject to somebody selling parking meters, right? It could be all kinds of things, right? That people come up with, and full solutions. So maybe we'll just keep working that. And if we see something specific next meeting, Bill, maybe if there's some options or some ideas that come out of that, we'll just make sure we get, because we're going to have to spend some time next time on that expression of interest too, right? Like getting like, what are we actually asking for, and confirming, like, what are we going to send to people, right? And what's the information going out? Go ahead.
Yeah, so if that is that information that's going to go out in through procurement, is that, I guess, just the date on the mini trade shows coming, we're not getting any information on what we're actually looking for. So they're just gonna come in with a bunch of machines, or are we gonna, because if that's on the, I guess the 25th, we're meeting again, and we have another month, I guess, till this supposed, if the trade show comes along. I'm just trying to justify if there's enough time in between here to get that information to the vendor. I guess most of these vendors will have a lot of options, I imagine.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Meredith. Yeah, I would think that these, companies are doing presentations on a regular basis, so would be able to provide us some information fairly quickly. But yeah, we'd have to run it through Kim Cruson, just to make sure we're following all the procurement legislation. And in speaking with her, this mini trade show is the best way to do that, so we can, take in more information and make a decision.
Yeah, so it can all be on one motion like we did the last time. So just to confirm with that staff provide the number of past paid permits and the revenue generated. And then staff to provide separate expense figure for the maintenance of the parking lots. Yeah. Okay, all right. So would you like me to read that whole motion again? Or all of the?
Let's
the
do that
takeaways?
because
Okay.
it's getting late.
Okay, I'll quickly read it. So that the ad hoc parking committee receive as information the PowerPoint presentation provided by the manager of municipal law enforcement, and that a tentative date for a mini trade show of vendors be scheduled for August 8th, 2024 at the NSSRC. That staff provided the number of parking machines in high-density areas in the old paid parking program and recommendations for the potential 2025 parking program. That the committee members come forward at the next meeting with recommendations and ideas on a new paid parking program. The staff provide the number of past paid permits and the revenue generated, and that staff provide a separate expense figure for the maintenance of the parking lots.
That sounds good. Does someone want to have the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Through the chair, just to the committee. So is that tentative? It's only a tentative date. We can't commit to that as of yet. Is that correct? Yeah. 28th. Yeah, I would love to get the tentative out of there if we can commit, just because then I can go to Kim and she can start,
Let's do it.
can we remove tentative?
Yep.
Thank you.